Our live. Okay, let's share this.
Oops. Yeah. Now I know how to do that.
Yes.
After 3 times. Wow, Sarita, you're so fast. Like, she did it before me. Wait.
Live now. Woo! Okay.
Uh,
How to share it?
Compartir.
No.
No.
Huh? Uh,
Done.
no. Ah,
She did it before me?
I'm sorry.
Wait. What? Oh!
Live now. Woo! Okay. How to
I
share
did the
it?
same thing last week. Now, your turn.
Compartir.
Wait.
I'm so sorry, guys. Okay.
There we go.
Facebook has changed. I'm sorry.
Oh.
Happening now. How do I?
There we go.
I'm ready. Great. Oh, we're ready before 6. That's great.
Yeah. So everybody already there. We have a question for you this time. What country are you listening from? Please comment. We're very curious to see how wide the audience we are reaching. Okay.
Wait,
Facebook has changed. I'm sorry.
what's going on again? No.
I don't know who's looking at it.
Like, mine is silence. Like, it's not me.
Ah, so
No,
good.
it was me.
Oh,
I'm trying to share the link.
yeah, Facebook has changed somehow. You can't share it without looking. Spain. We got Spain in that.
Spain. Andrew, you're watching this?
I was. I'm just trying to share the link.
Courtney, the USA.
Yay! Go.
All right. Post.
So for those who just came in, write what country you are listening from while we wait for people to join.
All right. Sweet.
Yes, since we were early this time, let's wait 2 minutes before we get into the serious business.
Switzerland.
Yay! That's nice. Now you can do the C melody for this show, Estefanía.
No, I don't want to. I'm fine. I have the ball this time. Like, only one. Hey, yeah.
15 people. Okay, good. We're getting there. Nice. So, new people, write where you're from, or I mean, where you're listening from. We want to know.
Where you from? Where you are?
That's very confusing.
Okay, no.
Where you are listening from, right?
Write a place. Pick a place. Any place. Right.
I want to be. I don't know. I will move to. Where is it? Okay.
Yeah, it's funny, Kate. Oh man.
Aww.
That's what this lockdown is doing, right? Connecting us globally.
A lot.
Yeah.
That's nice. It's very nice.
Okay, I will fix my tea.
From Oslo. Janne is here.
Hey.
Oslo?
Yes.
Hey.
Very nice. So this is the time to get your tea or a glass of water or whatever you want before we go on. Got 1 minute.
We'll be here for 5 hours.
No!
Already. Ragnhild is in the house. It's nice. Poland! Yay!
Black hole. Black hole in Poland here?
Black hole in Poland.
Okay. Oh, sorry. I have a unicorn this time.
A unicorn. Wow. That's nice. Yes. Should we just get down to business then?
Sure.
Okay, you start.
That's why we're here. Let's roll.
We left many questions in the air last time, many topics, and we figured this time we go on with talking about mentorship in tap dance. Because this, what does mentorship mean, right? It's many definitions and many opinions about mentorship.
Yeah.
So we encourage you guys to, be as active as last time and ask questions and opinions and
Yeah, I think there's a
whatever.
lot of people from last day like said it that yes, like people told me like I have like some question for next day. Come on, but maybe we can start.
Yeah,
Saying,
maybe there were
okay,
questions from last time that somebody
that's
having now.
possibility, but I was trying maybe to give a frame of what it means mentorship or what it meant or what
Yes.
could be mean for now. I think it's too much, but maybe like some place. Oh, maybe it's the definition of the dictionary.
Yeah,
I don't
exactly.
know.
That's what I'm bringing up right now to read the definition of the dictionary for you guys. Okay,
Great.
so at dictionary.com, it says that a mentor is, as a noun, is a wise and trusted counselor or teacher, or an influential senior sponsor or supporter. And it says that to act as a mentor, well, I don't have to read that. Yeah. So that's the definition according to dictionary.com.
All right.
That sounds right.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, that sounds right. I think one of the things that I encountered, like, is how that relationship happens. Like, there's sometimes where like I would consider somebody a mentor and they would not consider me a mentee. Like somebody would be influential on my life, but they would not want that responsibility, maybe. Or there were other times I'm thinking of examples where it's like I landed in a mentorship kind of relationship without ever asking the person to be my mentor. It just kind of like grew into that. Yeah, what are I mean, what is it for you guys? How is that showing up in your lives?
You want me to go first, Estefanía, or you want to go first?
You go first. I think I will explode. Go.
I mean, for me, mentorship has to be both-way communication. So it's not just a one-way relationship, but it's a relationship that has to do with a bit more than just being a teacher. I mean, you can have many great teachers, but it needs to go a bit beyond that, and it needs to be kind of like a guidance of different aspects in life. It can be, even though you have that one thing in common that would for us be tap dance, right? But it goes a bit beyond being just a teacher, and it's not necessarily just being friends either. So it's a sharing of information in a guiding way, I would say.
Yeah, I like the dictionary definition where it says wise counsel. So like, if you have a question, you have a list of people that you would want their opinion because you know they have either experience or something that would be helpful in the processing of like a particular situation.
And in that way, mentor should, you will notice as a mentee that the mentor is giving information and opinions beyond just the basic of a teacher. It's not just a basic answer, but they give more from deeper within, I would say.
Yeah, I mean, I think so. If we say that teachers give you like technical expertise, right? Like a how-to. Maybe a mentor is giving you a way, like a way of thinking, or a way of navigating, or a way of processing, not just within the context of dance, but within all the things that intersect with that.
We have a long question here from Katarzyna. Do you think that nowadays, with the abundance of teacher potential mentors, we can reach each other even despite the distance? Is better or worse in comparison to yesterday when the accessibility was much more limited?
No, your English is fine. Don't worry. This is understandable, and it's a really good question. I think in every situation, abundance comes with its own issues. So you have many more choices, but that means you have many more choices. So when I was coming up in the 90s, there were still choices, but there were limitations, and access was limited. So there was no internet. If you wanted to even like introduce yourself to Jimmy Slide, you had to find out where he was. You had to figure out how to like bump into him if he was waiting at the stage door, or knowing somebody that you could like have them introduce you to Slide, or like being at a session that he was hosting. Whatever it was, there was a lot of work to like getting into the place where the introduction could happen. I think now accessibility is a lot more prominent. It's easier to a certain degree, and I think there are more people offering the kind of advice that a mentor might. That are like, we're closer in generation than what used to happen. So Slide was, gosh, like 40 years older than I was. At least 40 or 50, even. There's like 2 generations, right? Now, I'm only 40 years old, right? And I would be considered someone, or in the generation of people that's like you would maybe ask mentorship type questions to. And I'm like, I'm still young. Like, take what I say with a grain of salt, because everything is changing, and the experience of being a dancer 20 years ago is not the same one that it is today. So I think that's trying to find the person that would speak to your experience in a way that's thoughtful becomes the challenge today. Getting access to them, I don't think, is as much of a challenge.
Maybe the thing we talk about, like you said, like mentor is based on a relationship. Then because right now you can reach like everybody, but there's no relationship. That's a thing. Like my student asked me, like give me the question for you guys too. Like, how do you go about seeking a mentor? Like, if they don't have like a personal relationship with nobody, like really close. And I was like, okay, that's a question too.
How do you find one?
Um,
Or how do you seek one?
she wrote, it's like, how do you go about seeking a mentor if you feel the need for one, but don't have a particular close relationship with one teacher? Like, what should I do? That's a question.
I think you have to find the teachers, because any mentor is going to be a teacher in some degree, right? If you're looking at it as, I want a mentor who understands tap dancing, who can also like show me the ropes in other ways. So you're going to want to find the teachers who, when they teach, you're like, that makes sense to me. The way that they teach, their approach to the dance, all that stuff needs to make sense. It needs to resonate with you. And that takes a second, like, to find those people. Especially going back to now that like there's so many voices. So which voice or which kind of area of the voices are the ones that will that you'll be attracted to? And then you just continue to show up with them. Like, wherever they are, you make sure that you're there. If you have a question, you try and ask them that question in whatever place. And sometimes with some teachers, depending on the moment, it's like, I'm sorry, I don't have time for that question, but I'll get you later. Or like, don't be discouraged if the person that you're chasing doesn't give you time when you want it. But I think there's, I mean, I can only speak to like my own journey, and that was, I just wanted to be around certain people. There wasn't this idea when I was growing up of, you go, you pick a mentor, you find them, you make them your mentor, and then you go and you become the mentee. Like, that wasn't a thing.
Do you still think that's a thing, by the way? Like,
I do think that's a thing today. Yeah, I think it's a thing where there's some language of like, you need to have a mentor. It's like, it's a good thing to have in the journey. Most people, especially if they don't have a strong teacher with them, will feel this like, I have all these questions and I don't have anybody to ask them. So like, you feel a gap, and I think that's a right feeling. The question is, how do you fill that gap? And I think one answer is to start building trusted relationships with the people that you are journeying with, right? And that becomes like your same generation, or maybe like a little bit higher, a little bit lower, kind of, these are the people that I trust as we go through this. And then there's the question amongst that generation of like, who are the people who have already gone through this, that we can ask questions of, that we can go to for wise counsel. And I think today, because most people, I don't know, everybody, a lot of people are scattered, and it's harder to develop that that connection intergenerationally. It becomes this thing of like, well, I need to go and get the person from that generation, and how do I get that person? And I think my journey was just more organic than that. Right? At no point did I go to someone and say, will you be my mentor? Lots of points did I go to someone and I was like, can I ask you a question? Because I've got some questions. And the way it happened for me was people saw me around enough that like that consistency became trust. Like, if I go to this place, I know Andrew's going to be there. Okay, cool. So I can trust that he's going to be there. And then they old cats are always watching. They are never not watching, especially younger people. So if you're in a spot and you're going around, there's gonna be some like an older cat who's sitting in the corner and they're watching, and they're like, okay, that's how that person operates. That's how that person operates. That's how, and they're taking notes. It's like mental notes. So they see and they know and they start to say, okay, if I spend time with this person or this person or this person, this is what I think is going to happen. So they start to make choices in terms of who they'll bring in to their circle, based on like, I think it's based on trust and care, and like the potential for an ongoing relationship in which their life experience would be valued and not just used, if that makes sense.
What you said?
Yeah, there's a comment here that's not in English.
Yeah, no, it was that the picture froze a bit. It's a bit bad connection. But I hope at least, I mean, our faces is not that important. So as long as you can hear us, I think it's good.
That works. Yeah, so I guess maybe stories would help here. So I met Gregory Hines when I was 10, 1990, 91. And I had parents who were crazy enough to put me in a car and chase him wherever he was. Like, we would go any show, any talk, anything that he was slated to be a part of, we would try and be there. And it got to such a degree of kind of craziness that the year the iMac was debuted, the very first iMac was like late 90s. Gregory was part of Apple's Think Different campaign. And very big deal. Like, Apple rebrands, they come out with this new colored machine. You could get it in, I think it was teal first, and then they had multiple colors after that. It was the all-in-one, and every year Apple had a developers conference at the Jacob Javits Center in New York City, and Gregory was going to perform. And so my mom and I bought tickets to go see the keynote speech at the Apple Developers Conference, just because Gregory was slated as a speaker. And so this is like 5 years after I met him. And we're sitting in the audience, Gregory comes out, he performs, and then he disappears. And the next person that comes out is Sinbad, who's a comedian, and he goes for 45 minutes of comedy. And my mom and I are stuck in the audience. We can't get up and leave because we're sitting in the front because I wanted to see Gregory. And then the next guy comes out and we're like, oh, and it would be really rude to like get up and leave in the middle of a comedian's act. So we're stuck. And I miss my chance, right? I know Gregory, like, he's probably not waiting in backstage for the end of the show to leave. He's probably out. So my chance is shot. But my dad is in the car outside of the place waiting for my mom and I to be done. And he sees Gregory walking down the street. And my parents are very, very shy normally. But this one moment, my dad flags Gregory down and he's like, listen, will you please just be in touch with my son because I'm tired of driving. I mean, we had put as a family driving around, we had put almost 200,000 miles on our car, like chasing Greg around. And so, you know, I didn't know about this, but the next time I saw Greg, he handed me his email address, and he's like, "Be in touch." And so that kind of access for me was huge. It's like, who has Gregory Hines' email address? And then the next question for me was like, well, what question do you ask? Like, what conversation do you start with Gregory Hines over email? Like, how do you do that? And I think so. The first question I had for him was, I was a teenager. I had just broken up with a girlfriend, and I'm like, I don't know how to do any of this. All the emotions, like all the craziness. And so I wrote Greg. I was like, help. I've just broken up with the girl and I don't know what to do. ... Andrew. And I sent it. And he wrote back. And I was like, whoa. And it was like a really simple email. It was like, I hear you, my brother. Dance it out. Greg. And that to me is like the like encapsulates what a mentor, friend, like all the things that you would want in that kind of relationship, right? They understand the journey of the craftsperson. They understand how that intersects with life. And they're willing to share that with an understanding and a knowledge that you are not them. And I think that's key. Like there's some Greg for me gave a lot of space. He was like, you are you. I want to see you. I want to see like what comes out of you. Some mentorships are like, no, I'm going to tell you how to do the thing and I want to see you do it the way I told you. Right? In all aspects. And that can be really challenging. Right? So I think for me, knowing kind of not only what you need, but the benefit of both. Like one is really clear. Do it the way I said it. Done. Over. Right? But it also can be oppressive, right? And then one is super open. I want to see what you do. If you have any questions, ask me. Right, but it might be too open for where somebody is on their journey. Right, and I've in my life I've kind of had both, and I benefited from both. Yeah, some are, the one that's like da, 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 is a little harder to grow out of. Right, it's like once you're at that place, you're like, okay, I think I got this. I'm gonna try a few things. That kind of relationship might break, right? Because the mentor is still like, oh no, like this is the way. And you're like, but there's like 3 other ways over here that I'd like to try. And so if they don't provide that space at that time, there can be some challenges.
So we got a lot of comments during this. I love this story, by the way. That's I can relate to that kind of relationship that you're talking about. So both of them. So Alexis is saying, and I just want to introduce who Alexis is. He's my husband, but he's one of the top dogs in salsa community. So
cool.
He has been through a lot of this, and he's saying that, in my opinion, there is no title that can define you as mentor, but there are essential requisites, such as the database of knowledge you can pause in order to transfer to somebody else, the direct relationship between the student and the teacher, not only in a technical level, but in a more personal level, as how the career influence her life, and be sort of guide in the path of the student's career, a kind of relationship that goes beyond time and distance. And
yes,
that's exactly what we're talking about here, I would say. So, yes, I guess.
Yes. Yeah, that's solid.
Yes. And then Sareta is a bit confused. So the difference between a teacher and a mentor is the kind of relationship she's asking.
I think so. I think, and I don't know. I've experienced this in my life where you go from like a business relationship to like, okay, after class, let's go out and we'll grab a bite to eat. And like that changes things because the conversation is different over a meal, like the interaction is different over a meal. And then
it has to be like an engagement from both sides.
Yeah, I think so. I mean, mentors hold space for the people that they care about. Like they think about those people on an ongoing basis. And so in that way, I think there's like, yeah, there's a connection that's more than, okay, we get on a call once a week for an hour and I give you some advice and then we're done. Thank you very much. Over. Yeah, in the business world, you have this idea where you can have mentorship calls with people for the exchange of money. And the difference between a mentor or a coach in that space is a mentor has a particular skill set that they're like teaching you, and a coach is just there to kind of answer your questions. But in that space, it's still like, well, you're just going to access me for some knowledge that I have, and it's 1 hour a week or something, and and then we're done. And I think I think in tap dance land, it can be different. It might be, should be different. I don't know, but like it's more of the we're connected in a particular way, and so there's all the things that happen in a relationship happened in a mentorship.
For sure. Alexis, do you want to comment? Alexis was very eager here.
Ah, come on.
Make a comment?
New guest.
Hey everyone.
Yeah, we're four.
Hey.
I'm sorry I didn't put my makeup, but yeah. Hello, everyone. Nice to meet you. Okay, just one thing regarding one thing that Andrew mentioned was about the mentor and the coach. Like what I feel is like a coach will train you in a technical way, but the mentor will give you a lot of like the essential vitamins in your career, like a mindset, not just like how to do skill movements and do the technical part, but it's like one kind of relationship as a father, as a mentor is like a father in a way, like he takes care of you, he guide you, like don't make that mistakes that I made, not just as a technical thing on stage, but let's say as how to make business and how to approach people, and a more personal, like how you behave as an artist or as a teacher, and it will give you like more deeper and more like personal feedback, and put itself as an example of how to and how not to do things, because that's the thing, a coach will be always have this stereotypical image, like okay, I'm the teacher and I'm kind of untouchable, in my opinion it's my opinion, and that's it. But as a mentor, it's like you go to put yourself as a level of the student in a way, and you become a more like it's like as like a brother, like you know what, I've been there too, and you shouldn't do that. I think that's basically what defines like a mentor and a tutor in a way. It's a little more like personal relationship in a way.
More nurturing relationship.
Yes.
Yeah, I think in the best of times, yes. Right, like when it's working really well. Yeah, for sure. I remember when I first started getting offers for like gigs that were not, just come here and dance. It's like travel to this place, we'll put you up, like this is the deal. The first person I called was Jimmy Slide. I was like, I have a question. Like, would you take this deal? This deal doesn't sound like it sounds okay, but something's a little fishy. And he was one voice that I trusted a lot, and I said no to a number of things that Jimmy Slide was like, I wouldn't do that. I'm like, all right, well, if you wouldn't do that, I won't do it. It's just like, and looking back, you can always check in hindsight. It's like, no, maybe I should have, but I think there's a lot of benefit to having someone to go to that where it's the things that you talk about are larger than how to shuffle or how to move or how to hold your balance in a step. It's is how do I navigate this industry, as well as how do I navigate this craft well, right? And how those two things interact. How do I, and it all ends up boiling down to how do I live well?
Correct.
Right. And at that point, your mentor doesn't have to be a tap dancer. They have to like understand the journey of an artist or the journey of a physical practitioner. Yes. Right. Because a visual artist will be a different kind of mentor to a tap dancer than like another dancer or someone who's more in touch with physical movement as their primary expression. But both will give value, and both, like a visual artist who's lived a life that you respect might be a better mentor than a dancer who's lived a life that you look at and you're like, I wouldn't do anything that they did. Right? Because those people exist.
Mm.
Yeah.
And so if you're looking for someone, you as a mentor, if the questions that you're gonna ask are gonna drill down to like the core questions, you want to have someone that you trust with those core questions.
Mm.
Or you have like a bunch of people that you ask, and then it's like a buffet. You take the answer that you think works. But if you're gonna try and move or like trust one or two people, then it's important to actually trust them
Mm.
and not just say they're amazing dancers, I want them to be my mentor. Great. Or like, if they're my mentor, I'll get a gig. Great. Like, that's good, but I don't think that goes to the core of the question.
Mm. For sure. There's more here. So mentor is always for life, or they can be valid for some part of life.
I think you get to decide.
So it's like it's a human relationship, meaning human relationship has a natural path. It's not that you sign a contract for a certain period of time, but it's just simply as friendship, even in family. Some families goes together, some families split. Friendships are the same. Sometimes you are like this, you separate, and after a certain time you come back together again. So it just follows a very natural path, I would say. Like I got to feel and I got to experience this kind of relationship of mentorship when I was living in Japan, because
Hmm.
over there you have like different types of crafts. Like if you want to be a blacksmith or you want to do a certain type of things. I mean, there are many students that wants to get to the point where they will have this like personal relationship, like have a mentor, and they will go and knock the door to the teacher, and the teacher is not interested about the profit. They don't do this just for the profit of it. They do this with the purpose of passing the torch to the next generation and want to find the one who is actually worthy the knowledge. So many goes and knock the door and can you train me? And if the teacher doesn't have the vibe that actually both have the same kind of mindset, he will decline until
Yep.
he might find the chosen one and he will take it. And actually, this person will live in the house with the teacher, and they will do exactly the same thing as the teacher does every day. Go and do
Yep.
the chores, do the shopping, clean the dishes, whatever, until this like level of trust reach the point where okay, now is the time for me to give you all the knowledge that I harvest through time, which is goes beyond technical, but how this influenced my life till the
Yep.
point that I am who I am,
Yep.
right? So basically, when I understood this, I was like, okay, a teacher is a teacher, a tutor is a tutor, a mentor is completely something goes beyond all
Yeah.
of this.
Yeah. That tradition is still alive in like very particular crafts in very particular areas.
Yes.
It's, at least from my experience, it's not really alive in tap dance like that. Like, there are very few places where, if any, man, that I can think of where the person is like, "Oh, you're the one. Okay, come live with me. Like, we're gonna do life together, and in that way, you're gonna learn how the rhythm of life for me is like integrated with tap dancing and the business and my family and like all the things that life carries." It's like, why are we shopping for this food? Well, because I'm gonna eat this meal and then that's gonna help me in my practice session and then I'm preparing for this gig. Like, it's all connected, right? But I think there's a lot of distance now or separation between like learning how to tap dance, having somebody who's a big influence on you, and also like the industry and the rhythms of life. Like, they're not always connected in the way that we would want them to be, to have a mentorship like that, where it's like we're gonna actually do all of this together.
Especially in the Corona times. I mean, how can you do that now? You have to be social distancing for a few meters, right? Because that's one of the questions. How can you do that in these times? Because you don't have the same luxury as you had before, and you see some of the people nowadays. Of course, the barriers are actually shorter due to the fact that we have technology like internet, right?
Mhm.
Everything is changing. The borders are basically gone in a way, because as we are now chatting, where are you now?
I'm in Idaho.
In Idaho. Then we have Barcelona, and we are in London. Imagine. So it's like there is no borders no more. So of course there is certain way of you got to see the person. I mean, you meet the person in person, and you can actually bond. But I have been kind of meeting great people that I have never really shake hands with and do amazing projects with using this technology. So it's just a matter of adapting, I guess, because back in the days was certain way, but nowadays we don't have the same kind of luxury. But you always can find the way, I believe, because relationship goes beyond distance as well. So if you manage to find a good affinity with somebody, regardless the fact that you might be thousands of kilometers away, when you
Mhm.
click with somebody, you feel it, right? So that's
Yeah.
actually quite universal, I guess. And now it's easy because we can actually connect in this way. And I haven't met you, even shake hands with you, and I get the click, like we actually are on the same page somehow. So this is
Yeah.
basically, it's a matter of adapting to the new way of how things are turning out. And I think there is a way to find out, the way to kind of do a virtual mentorship
Oh,
somehow.
yes, for sure. This
I,
kind of touches the next question because Naomi says that I never had a mentor, even if I'd love to or need to, because I feel the gap has to be filled. But I personally can't build that sort of all-round relationship with someone that not live in my country. Do you have some advice?
so I think like what we're talking about if is personally the way you navigate and develop relationships are the way that this is going to happen. So if you're saying this is not going to happen with someone who's not in my country, then it's not going to happen
Mm.
for someone who's not in your country. So, but if you're looking in tap dance land, like you might have to go outside of your normal kind of limitations in terms of geography or something, or like wherever you think it's going to happen for you to find the person that will fill that gap for you. I think, and it might look crazy and it might feel not normal. And you know, in order for me to be around Gregory, like the first couple of years, we were driving 6 hours away from where I live to go and be in the same place that he was. And that's like I think part of this is finding the place that you need to show up to be around the people that you think will fill the gap for you. And that's the equivalent of like going to the person's place and knocking on their door and saying, "Hey, like I'm a person, you're a person. Will you can this thing happen?"
Mm.
And instead of for me, instead of knocking on the door, just showing up is step one. Because I think it would be a different thing if you sat down on the stairs of the person's house that you wanted to be your mentor and you just like practiced there every day. They would come out and they would look at like, "You're still here and you're still working?" Like, "Oh my gosh, okay." And then the next day, like, "Oh, you're still here and you're still working?" Like after a week of that, they'll just invite you in
Mm.
because you're showing them that you're at least your level of commitment, whether skill or no skill, it doesn't matter, but your level of commitment is there. And in a craft that is exceptionally difficult, and where commitment kind of does this over time, we see a lot of people start and a lot of people not continue. And we see a lot of people like continue, but maybe not in a way that we think is the way that they learned or the way that they were taught. There's a lot of like, I'm not sure about you. Like, it takes a lot of courting to get that relationship to start. So my advice is show up. And it doesn't have to be all around, right? Very few friendships are there to carry all of life. Right? So you think of your mentor as someone that you can share a particular aspect, and if it grows beyond that, bonus. But it doesn't, you don't have to put that, you're not marrying your mentor. You just put that out there. Right? But you don't have to put that pressure on that relationship. They're there to fill a gap, to share with you a particular experience.
I think also with this that we talked about with the borders and not being in the same country, I think also that if you find somebody that you feel that this person can guide me somehow, or this could potentially be a mentor in the future, then that type of trust and the fact that you will reach out even not being in the same country would make the future mentor or the mentor feel that kind of trust, that this person is reaching out to me because that person trusts the knowledge I have and it seeks guidance from me. And then the living in different countries won't matter these days, because you'll pick up the phone and talk with this person, or FaceTime, or message like, help, something happened in my life, what would you do? Like you said with Jimmy's slide, it's even easier now, but of course it has to be some kind of connection there, and both has to feel that I trust this person.
Yeah.
Okay, sorry to interrupt. I'll just leave you guys. I'm sorry. I'm so hooked. I'm watching TV. Like, oh, this is great. I keep watching on my phone in the corner. So leave you guys.
Good.
Sorry for the interruption. But I couldn't handle it. I said, I gotta say something. So
Yeah, man.
keep doing. It's amazing what you guys are doing. I'm a fan already, and will support you definitely.
Yeah.
Thank you so much. Bye bye.
Thank you. That was awesome.
So next question here is, Andrew, besides Gregory Hines, did you have any other mentor in your dance life?
Lane is here. Yes. So I've had I've been really blessed. So I will say the people that I consider mentors are people that I've like had a particular level of access to, whether that was like going to their house or having their email address, or like, you know, it wasn't just someone I spent time around. Does that make sense? So if you ask me who were my influences in tap dance land, that'd be a different list than who were my mentors. Like, there'd be more people on that list than the mentorship list. So mentors, Gregory Hines, Henry Latang, Jimmy Slide, Bunny Briggs, Buster Brown, Tina Pratt, Mabel Lee. Who am I missing? Leroy Myers. And I would, like, I didn't spend a ton of time with them, but Brownie Brown and Face Roberts, I would consider mentors, really close, maybe friends before mentors. But who am I missing?
That's actually what you just said connects to the next question. Do you think mentorship necessarily implies friendship? There are different boundaries than just a regular teacher, like you said, but I'm wondering how closely these two connect.
I think so. Friendship is a really beautiful quote that I enjoy from C.S. Lewis. He says, "Friendship happens when one person looks to the other and says, 'Oh, you too,' and you're like, there's a commonness of experience that happens in that is kind of at the root of friendship, and so I think a friendship can happen before a mentorship happens."
Mm.
And there've been moments in my life, like there are people in my life who I would consider mentors that they would not consider me a mentee, right? And there are people in my life who consider me a mentor, and I recognize my responsibility in that, but I also consider us friends. And so I think there's a very specific thing that mentorship has like a lot of responsibility around it. If somebody trusts you with questions that are going to affect their choices in life, then the mentor has a responsibility to understand that those, like, their answers are going to affect this person's life. Whereas if you talk amongst friends, you're like, whatever I say, you're going to go and make your own choice. Like, I have no investment in your life other than to say, if I see you going down like a really bad path, I'm going to tap on your shoulder and say, are you sure you want to you sure you want to do that? A mentor might go so far as to like yank you off of that path, because as a mentee, you're carrying the name of the mentor wherever you go. And they want to make sure that you're carrying their name in a good light.
Hmm.
So I think, to be very open about this, I spent off and on almost 13 years around Savion Glover. And he was a very, very like high influence on me and my life. I don't know if he would consider me a mentee of his, right? So I would claim him as somebody that I love and care for and like honor, because his dancing is inside of my dancing. Like, it's just all there. And there's no way that I would be able to split from that, right? To cut ties and say, I'm going to go over here. But, in terms of like, is he a mentor?
But instead, maybe he's a friend and a teacher, but not necessarily a mentor, right?
Exactly. And maybe that relationship shifted depending on the time that we were sharing, right? Or the context. So just to say that stuff happens, and to know that that's part of what this is. But it's part of the conversation around it.
So next question is, when does a teacher turn into a mentor?
I think when you ask them about life. I think that's when, and when you have access to them that other people don't.
I think that's an important point, because, I mean, any of our students can come and ask us about our life.
True, but how much are you going to share with someone, right? That is in passing, and how specific are you going to get? Part of that is so the story when Gregory, towards the end of Gregory's life, he had cancer, and he didn't tell anybody at first. And then what he did is he started to tell people, specific people, and he told them individually, and he swore each of them individually to secrecy. So nobody knew who knew. And everybody who he told honored that promise because they loved the person, right? They loved Greg, and they honored that friendship. But it was kind of a way to it was kind of a way. So when Greg called me and he told me, he used these words: "I want to bring you in." And so in one way, we can look at like the relationships in our lives as like circles. And so there's certain things that you only share with your inner circle. And I think for mentors and mentees, you're closer to that inner circle as a mentee to that person than maybe some of their family members. Right? And so you will know, like you will recognize, and that question is coming from Elise. I know Elise. You will know when a mentorship happens as your relationship in trust with that person grows. And it might be so organic that you don't realize it until like you're 3 years in and you're like, holy smokes, I would go out to eat, I go to his house, like you sit on the porch, like you call him whenever I need to, like all those things kind of in the best of cases, they happen organically. And then you're sitting there on the inside and you're looking around going, whoa, I didn't expect to be here. Right? Because the way that you showed up was not to get to that spot. You just showed up because you cared.
Yes. Anna is asking, when and how did the concept of mentor appear? I mean, when who first started to dance, people would approach to them just to dance and steal some step, but they wouldn't be teachers or mentors. When did that change?
I think there was always, so in human history, there has always been a mechanism for the transference, not only of, we're not talking about knowledge, like this is a cup, I'm going to show you that this is a cup, and you're going to know that this is a cup. But we're talking about the transference of wisdom or identity, right? That this is our cup, it's shaped like this because we shape it like this, because we live in this area and we drink from the cup like this. Or it's made of this material that we find in this area of the land that we live in, right? And this is how we form that material to make this cup. That wisdom is normally found in the context of an apprenticeship, right? That's probably the more formal way that. Yes, thank you, Courtney, because I'm blabbing. But just to finish this thought, the context of apprenticeship is really formal. and you might be one of 5 apprentices in a particular craftsman's shop, right? And you're there to learn a particular skill, and then the idea is either you start working for the craftsman, or you then go off and open your own shop, but there's a relationship between the 2 shops. I think there's always been in tap dance land a mentor-mentee relationship, but not on this grand scale. Bill Bailey was mentored by Bill Robinson. Chuck Green was mentored by John Bubbles. Like, there are these kind of links in the line that are not formalized in the same way that an apprenticeship is, but are strong. I mean, you look at, I can't remember if it's About Tap or No Maps on My Tap. Either one of those 2 documentaries has a moment where Chuck is on the phone with John Bubbles.
No maps.
No Maps. And you see their relationship, like you see the conversation between the 2. And it's beautiful to witness and to know that even in their older age, right, their connection was still super strong. They would talk to each other. They were connected. All right, your turns. Like, your turn.
Estefanía has been very quiet, so I think Estefanía go first.
I go first.
Yeah.
I mean, I never used the word mentor. Like, maybe I think I have one, but I didn't use it and never say it to him, and he never said to me. Then I think it's based, like we were talking about the relationship. You go to a specific person because you feel attached of the style or the things that he's doing, and you are just around this person. And how this thing grew up, I think you're not pushing this to happen. I think it comes natural, and it happened to me. Well, I don't like to say mentor. Like, the person that is like next to me is Sharon. Like, I started with him maybe more than 15 years ago. I don't remember. And I still have this person next to me. He's not trying to say, like, you need to do that or you need to do that. He's just taking care. And the thing for me that is really awesome, thanks to this lockdown, I'm doing the same thing with him. I'm taking care of him. It's like not one way, it's like both ways. And that for me is like awesome. And then right now, because I feel a lot of people is seeking for that relationship, I think you need to be around but not push it. But I'm saying that because for me it was like, so like, it's awesome. It happened like that way, and I think it's the best way. Ta-da!
That was short and nice. No, but I totally agree that it's kind of like, in my life, I never, same as Stephanie, I never really called this person a mentor ever. But I, of course, when I look back or I look at the situation now, I might have had several mentors. And for one that is very clear for me, and it was very clear after it happened, was Luru, for those who knows Luru, who used to live in Barcelona. And I will be very careful with what I say here, because a lot of people had special relationships with him. He was a special friend to a lot of people. But the thing that happened with him is that I was friends with him. I met him through my teacher and through the friends that I had in Barcelona. We used to be in Barcelona, a group of us from Norway used to be in Barcelona every summer for like a month. So, of course, we were hanging out. Everybody was friends. And everybody had different type of relationship with him. He was an amazing dancer and a really good friend to a lot of people. But what happened after he got cancer, both him and I reached out on a different level, So we talked like an hour every day about relationships we had to other people, with how to do different types of businesses within tap dance, and about life in general. But the reason why I kind of can see that he the last part of his life was a mentor to me is because, for instance, Tap Oslo Festival would not have happened without him. He gave me so many tools and guidance that me myself wouldn't have thought of alone. He pushed my buttons to do the things that he saw I could do, and that's what kind of flipped it for me later. That he he, he gave me, even if I wanted to dig a hole, he gave me the spade to dig the hole. I might not have had these tools without him. And he was a relationship that went past just being a teacher or just giving me information, because we talked about everything and he was a good friend. So at that time, I just saw him as a good friend who gave me advice. But everything he said, I took like this and I kept it, and it has shaped me into doing what I do today. So that's kind of like one type of mentorship. And then, for instance, right now, most of you know that Tikoto's school is mine, and they're also the old boss Shashti, who ran the school for 17 years, has become kind of a mentor to me in the way of how to run the business. Because whatever it is, I call her and she tells me how she has done it, and I listen to her and I take all the advice that has to do with how to run this business, because this is her legacy that I'm continuing to do. I spice it up with some of my influences, but at the bottom of the day, everything relates to her. So every time I'm wondering about something, I call her and I listen to what she has to say. So yeah, that's my experiences. And of course, I mean, there's, and I think Estefanía can agree to this too, that there has been teachers through life that has affected you, and maybe at a certain point could have been called mentor, but not through the whole period. Because I see that there's, I used to do a lot of different types of dance, and I have a dance teacher. I still say I have my one of my first jazz teachers that I still have a very good friendship with, and if it's something I know, I can call her, and she always supported me, and I always listened to whatever she had to say. But that might be more as a teacher and a friend than I would call a mentorship. But at a certain point in time, could be a mentorship. So yeah.
It's beautiful. It's like it's really, really special for me to hear other people talk about mentorships, because there's something that happens like in people's voices and their faces when they talk about people that they love and they care about in that context. And it's just, I think it's a wonderful thing to share and to honor and to celebrate, because those kinds of relationships, even outside of tap dancing, I think are really rare. Like if you have
Yes.
How lucky you have, Andrew. I would say that's really lucky, because some people might not even get one, you know?
Oh yeah, no, and I think the flip side of that blessing is the responsibility, right? Which, if you're inside one of those, if you're inside one of those relationships, there's something that happens where you're like, at least for me, and it's something that I'm still navigating. It's like part of the rest of my life is going to be reflective of that relationship. It's like in celebration of, in honor of, informed by, and yeah, it's like I can't not do that. Right? And sometimes it feels like uh, sometimes it feels like a burden, or it can be really weighty sometimes, and sometimes it feels like fuel. And I think there's a I think there's a thing around that where maybe it has to do with love and care and kind of like what that special thing is, where it's not only something that you receive. Like, you don't only get stuff from a mentor, you have to go and do stuff because of the mentor.
Yes.
And whether that's, whether that's pointed towards them, like back to them, or whether that's pointed out into the rest of the world, might depend on like the time and the context, but there's definitely like an action.
Mm-hmm.
It's not just like, okay, I'm gonna sit here and you're gonna tell me the story of your life, and I'm gonna get that, and then I'm just gonna go and kind of live my life, whatever. It's like, no, it becomes really, really connected.
Yes. Katarzyna says, it's still hard for me to see the difference between a mentor and a friend. And in Polish language, they differentiate between a friend and just someone we know. I mean, we do that too, like a friend and an acquaintance. That's two different things.
Yeah, and I think really the mentorship has to do with the like the difference in experience or perceived wisdom between the mentor and the mentee. That there's a legitimate dynamic of guidance, of being guided by, in trust, and with maybe within the context of a friendship, or like you grow into a friendship. But friends don't necessarily come into a friendship for guidance.
Mm.
Right? You come into a friendship because of common experience, and maybe common pursuit. But you don't make a friend because you want them to tell you how to do a thing. And I think the gap that a mentor fills is, it's someone who is close to you that can also guide you.
Yes. For sure.
I feel like it's
like let that sink a bit.
people are thinking. There are. I mean, Hank, amazing. Hank Smith is on the call. Yeah. Thanks for hopping in, man. If anybody wants to go see like an interesting window into one of the spaces in which like relationships were grown, check out, Hank did an amazing video. When was it? Like a couple of days ago, maybe. Oh no, on May 17th, Buster Brown's birthday, about Buster and Swing 46 and a number of like that chunk of time, and it's really good. I don't know if it's still on your Facebook page, Hank, but I'm gonna send people there, because it's just, those Swing 46 happened for like 96, started in 96-ish up through 2003-ish. Buster passed away, and then a couple other people tried to host the session, and then
It's on YouTube.
It's on YouTube. Go watch the thing. and then ask questions, like find the people who were there and ask them questions about the thing, because that's how this works. Oh, was it 97? Okay. I can't remember when Stephanie, Stephanie? Yeah, Stephanie. Not Estefania, Stephanie. Started the, like, got the ball rolling on that. But yeah, like, so much happened in that space. It's where I started dancing to jazz. It's where, you know, a number of dancers like kind of cut their teeth on that floor. And it's where Buster held court for the last, you know, kind of period of his life. So finding windows into that space are just really important. So thanks for sharing that, man.
Nice. Anna is asking a difficult question here. What about Estefanía, Iselin, and Andrew's mentorees? Well, I can honestly say I'm too young. when I'm older and have more experience, then I would be proud if somebody would call me me a mentor. But right now, I mean, 70% of my students are older than me. I think that's strange to call me a mentor then.
But that's a question about a mentor needs to be older. Like, it's not about age.
No.
No, I think they just need to be wiser.
Yes, I'm not there yet. I'm missing some wisdom here. I'll let you guys know when the wisdom comes.
Oh God.
Oh man.
Oh.
Yeah, I don't know.
I found I found some people calling me mentors. Like, I didn't do nothing with you. Like, I mean, like, people maybe after spending 2 years with somebody, they call them mentor. And because I don't use that word for me with my person, I will say person right now. When somebody comes to me and say, like, you're my mentor, I'm like, that's not happening. And I think it's not about age. Maybe because I had like a long path. I started with 18-year-old professionally. I did like many things. Maybe for a person that is starting right now, I have wisdom for them, for sure. All the experience is wisdom.
Mm.
If you compare to like what is like the knowledge, okay, it's another thing. But in my life, I think that's a thing too. Then yeah, like, I don't feel I'm doing something specifically with nobody because I don't want to do that right now. But maybe there's people like feel because how I'm sharing the things, I'm a mentor.
Maybe you can call yourself like a sensei instead, you know, a master for your students instead.
Okay.
Anyway, I mean, it's like it's a teacher that you feel gives a bit more maybe than every other teacher, but that doesn't either have to be a mentor. I think as we have been talking about, it's a friendship that needs to develop a bit more. It needs to bake a bit more before you can say that you're my mentor. And it needs to be trustworthy both ways.
Yeah, for me, it's close.
Yeah, go ahead. Sorry.
No, like, it's close. Friendship and mentorship. Go.
And I think there's there's a dynamic that happens easily when somebody's old that a younger person will like, it's easy to come under the wing of an older person and be like, oh, you have a lot of gray hair, so you must be wise, and I will sit with you, and like that kind of thing. But I think there's also like I mentioned before, there are some people in my life who will call me their mentor and friend, and those two, like, the two of those things are separate. And like, and we know that, like, it feels weird for them to, it feels weird for me, for them to call me their mentor, because I still feel like I'm learning. And my definition of wisdom is like applied experience, or like the learning of experience reapplied. So it feels weird for me to like be in that position where somebody's asking me for wisdom if I still feel like I have experiences that I need to have before I can call what I have wisdom.
Mm.
Um,
You put it way better than me.
I think about this stuff a lot because
Yeah.
because there's just, and this is something that we haven't really talked about yet, is like when mentorships go bad, like they go really bad and they affect people really negatively. And if you want to not do that to people, then, but you know you're in a position where that, like, that exchange and that responsibility can happen, then what I've tried to do is spend a lot of time thinking about that relationship and what is the most healthy way I can enter into that relationship so that, you know, expectations are clear and people's feelings don't get hurt, and like all the things that can happen in a mentorship because it's close. Kind of all the potential pain is lessened, but the closeness, or the kind of arc of the relationship is still the same, right? And I think that's the responsibility of the mentor, because the mentee doesn't know, especially if they've never been in a mentorship relationship before. Like I don't know what this is. I know you're my person. That's as much as they get, right?
Yes.
Like, you're my person, and then you're like, as in that position, you're like, okay, well, me being your person means this. Like, this is when you can call. This is what we're going to talk about. This is how we're going to hang out. Like all those things. So with the people that I love and I care about, and who are there, and they're like, yeah, so you're my mentor and we're friends. Like, I try and make sure that I share as much of my own humanness in that relationship as possible. Like my own learning, as opposed to kind of being like being the guru, right? The person who knows everything and has experienced everything, and then they just answer questions. Like, no. I like how many mistakes or things have I learned in the past 9 weeks? Like that's that's the conversation that I would want to have with someone who calls me their mentor, so that they know that it's never done. And that the it's kind of like, not only is it never done, you're always kind of sharpening. You're saying, oh, yep, saw that quicker than I did before, made the fix, and then we're moving on.
I think, like coming back to this thing that you said about learning and age, because there are young people who are very reflected at an early age and could be seen as a mentor at a very early age. But there are certain experiences in life that can only come with life. And I think a mentorship is kind of the combination of that. So it's not necessarily about learning, because yes, you learn all your life, but it's about the uh, um, how you as a person can reflect over the experience you have in life. But to be able to do that, you need the experiences, and certain experiences don't come early in life.
No. I mean, certain experiences don't come without certain context,
Mm.
right? Whether you're talking about, you know, recognizing somebody who's honest versus somebody who lies, or, you know, experiencing betrayal, or experiencing love, or, you know, experiencing the kind of like the kind of responsibility that comes with a relationship that's based on love, but that you're like, you don't necessarily want that responsibility, but you have to do it anyway because you love the person. Like, all those things are contextual, right? And so I think having a mentor. So Stephen King has a wonderful book called On Writing, and it's basically his process, right? How does a wonderful writer write? And a full 1/3 of the book is just about his life. And he introduces it in a way that says, if you're going to learn how to write from me, you need to know who I am, because who I am informs how I write. And that, I think, for the mentee, it's really important to know who your mentor is. What's their context? What is their frame of the world? So that you can take what it is that they're giving them, or what it is that you're receiving. You can receive it in a way that's in the proper context. Right? Sitting with someone like Jimmy Slide, his life experience is very different than the context that I came from. And so learning not only about like what the world was like when he was coming up, but particular choices that he made in that space. Right? Slide was one of the cats that went to Europe. He was one of the cats that attempted to have an interracial act. He had a dance partner named Ray Malone, and they had a duo for a particular time. You know, those are choices that are framed. I mean, he grew up during the Depression as a kid. All those things frame how someone sees the world around them. And then when you see the choices, you're like, whoa, these are strong choices. And that gives you an idea of who the person is and how the person is. If we just assume that the mentor has like the same worldview that we do, or the same kind of outlook that we do, you can end up in some really interesting conversations.
For sure.
So I want to. There's somebody, I don't know if they're still on the call. Elaine, who's Elaine? Elaine Culinary said hi earlier,
Yeah.
and I just want to say one thing, because I met Elaine on account of my relationship with Henry Latang. So there was a time in my life where I was just sending out notes in the Northeast of like to studios saying, "Hey, I'm a teacher. Would you be interested in hiring me for a workshop?" I was like, I don't really like doing that, but I was doing it. It's not something that comes naturally to me. And in my little bio, I said I've been mentored by so and so, so and so, and Henry Latang. And out of all the people, Elaine was the one that called me back. And when we had our first conversation, Elaine was like, "You were really taught by Henry Latang? Tell me about what that was like, because I was taught by Henry Latang." And I was like, "Oh no!" But there's this thing that, like, if you drop a name, there are other people who know that name and have a relationship with that name, and you are going to run into people who, like, either have similar connections or have a connection enough that they are going to be willing to test you on yours. And that's legit. It is part of the process. And so, that's why I'm careful. I remember I used to be less careful. There was a conversation I had with Savion once. He asked me, he's like, "So who would you consider your mentors to be?" And I started listing all the names of everybody I'd ever spent time around, because I consider them like a very big influence on me. So I carried the things that they've told me around with me. And I dropped a name. I dropped Lon Chaney as a name. Lon Chaney is someone that I spent not a lot of time around, but time enough that I would consider him an influence on me. Now, Savion had spent much more time around Lon Chaney. And hi, Dad. Thanks for dropping me. And, like, comparatively speaking, there is no way that me calling Lon Chaney a mentor would compare with Savion calling Lon Chaney a mentor, right? They're two completely different experiences. And so once I dropped that name, he was like, "Wait, you would consider Lon Chaney a mentor? Why would you consider Lon Chaney a mentor? Was he like actually your teacher, or did you just spend time around him?" And I was like, "Oh, interesting articulation of language." Right? And so because the idea of mentorship and being somebody's person in tap dance land translates to communal trust and communal value, it becomes really, really important to know who will claim you as a mentee before you claim them as a mentor. And it will naturally show up in your dancing. Like, if somebody's a mentor and they're giving you not only process but technique and chunks of stuff, it will show up in your dancing. And so there are ways for people in the community to kind of check and say, "Oh, it looks like you've spent a lot of time with so-and-so." And then you will say, "Yes, they were my mentor for X number of years before they passed away," or they are my person. But I was checked very early on to say, I've been influenced by, spent lots of time with, and then mentored by. They're all
Can I
different.
add something to that? Because
Yeah.
I have like a, yeah, okay. I noticed that today a lot of people very easily, and not to offend anybody, but a big part of Europe kind of claims to be a student of a lot of the big names in the state because they've been taking their classes at festivals. But to be a student of some of these people you kind of need to, on regular basis, have studied a bit more to kind of claim as I'm a student of, not just 5 classes on that festival and 5 classes on that festival. That's just my opinion. I don't know if you, because I feel a bit like that's kind of also in the pot that you're talking about, to differentiate between influence and inspiration and all these kind of things.
I think it's I think it's a mess because
Thank you.
this is not a new mess. This is a very old mess,
Mm.
right? Henry told me once. He said he was at an audition. He was casting, and somebody walks in the room. He picks up the resume. He looks under like teachers. He sees his name, and he looks at the person and he says, "Oh, it says here that you were taught by Henry Latang." And the person is like, "Oh yeah, like definitely lots of classes, great teacher, you know, my person." And Henry looks at them and looks at the paper and says, "That's funny. I don't remember you."
Yes.
And like, you can imagine that person just turning pale because they didn't even recognize that was Henry, like in front of them.
Mm.
So this is an old mess, right? The thing that I think is more challenging today is that in the dancers who claim to be students of a particular teacher, because the teachers have like the quote the T, yes. All of it is coming out. Because tap dance today has like a very high level of virtuosity and a very, I don't want to say flat, but it's flatter than it used to be in terms of stylistic approach. It's harder to say, no, I don't see any of that teacher in your dancing. Because all the dancing is like super high level, and to track the stylistic lineage is harder. So I think it gets more messy. Because someone can say, look at my dancing, I'm dancing at the level of, virtuosity wise, a particular teacher that I took a couple classes from. And so I can say I'm their student when, you don't know if that teacher would claim them, and you can't actually technically see a stylistic line. You just see a level of virtuosity, like a level of technical skill. And I just think that's part of the challenge of what we have today as like a tap dance community, where there are tons of people who have really, really, really high technique, and the context in which you make creative choices is shrinking. Like the places where dancers can learn how to arrange a tune for a live band, put that tune on a live band, dance to that solo a number of times so that they have a clear statement through that piece, is like smaller and smaller and smaller and smaller. And in that way, I think it's just harder. It's harder to trace the lineage.
I feel lately what happened? Sorry. Because we feel like some people is feeling like the connection and this lineage is broken, they're kind of using this word or finding this mentor to get again this relation. But like we're using that word right now, like, but using in a bad sense.
Well, I think there's also the potential. You know, it's the same way that master carries weight, right? There are some places where if you go to teach, they will only call it a master class. If you ask them to call it something else, they're like, we won't get any students. It's not going to work. And so you're stuck. Either you say no, thank you very much, I'll go teach somewhere else, or you're stuck having a label put on you that might not be what you need to carry yet. And so I think it's very right for people in this craft to know that there's a gap, to know that, you know, because tap dance was not commercially popular for a span of time, we literally have a generation gap from the folks in like Sly's generation and above, and the way that they were able to go through the context of the craft, nightclub performances, live music everywhere, like that life formed their craft work. And what people were able to experience and do on an ongoing basis in the 50s and 60s, and then how the craft work came back in the 70s and 80s, and the way that it was not only introduced, but the amount of spaces that craft work was able to be done in, right? You end up with a desire to like reach back and find someone who can show you how it used to be done, so that you know you can attach yourself to the route that like is inspiring to you. So I think that's all correct, right? To recognize that and to want to be connected. I put more responsibility on the people in the position of mentorship in that regard, to say, if I engage with you, this is the context of the engagement. You get to say that either you are my student, or that we are working together, or that you are training with me. But having that clarity will, I think, keep people out of trouble, or help the community like govern itself. Because you know, folks need to work, and folks need to get gigs, and there's nothing wrong with that. However, the leverage, the way in which you navigate the industry reflects on the community, and it reflects on your teachers, and it just reflects on how you are. It reflects on your approach to the craft work. That's what it does. And so I think it's just important for people. And if you're not sure what to say or what to do or how to write, you ask someone. You ask a bunch of people, and you get the thing, and like you get the one that kind of resonates with you, and you go. And that way you don't feel like you're alone, and that other people are angry at you for doing a thing and you didn't know, and you're like, why are you angry? Like, listen, ask some people. You know, I think communities start to fracture when people just go off and do their own thing and forget to ask. Yeah, for whatever reason.
Yes. I don't know if anybody has any more questions. We're closing in on 2 hours again. So if you have any last questions now about what that was, for instance, like I don't know what Estefanía is doing now.
Just nothing. I'm fine.
Well, I would just say again, it's an honor to have you on this talk, Andrew, and what you bring to the community. And I mean, that's what you're doing here. You putting food to the community to take care of the tap community, and that's beyond just saying thank you for doing this. I mean, it's on a totally different level, and I think everybody loves that you share your opinions and your knowledge with us. We got a long comment from Gina. I'm a professional singer who only recently began tapping. I was lucky to find a teacher who studied with Leon Collins and Diane. She has been teaching me Leon's number one. Every class is with jazz music and much time talking about the history of tap. I love this conversation you are sharing. Thank you all. And Andrew, I found you online heard you dancing Billy Bounce. I instantly heard it. It tickled me. Thank you all for making this info available. Oh, that's lovely.
And she found the clip. I did a performance with two drummers to Billy's Bounce. It was like just them on each one had just a snare drum and a hi-hat. Like that's it. And so we played the head together, and then we traded a little bit, and then we went back and played the head together. It's really cool that you heard it. That's awesome, because there's no melody line. It was just the rhythm. That's super fun. Yeah, I mean, I don't know. I don't think that there's anything else I should be doing, if that makes sense. Right? It's like you care. I don't know. It's just this feels right. Like what you guys are doing in terms of opening up a place to have the conversation, I think is really important and really special. And the way that you are holding that space, I think, is really special. So, I want to thank you for, the conversations can't happen without the space, right? In the same way that, and the way the space is created frames like how the conversation is going to go. So if we came in here and we said, all right, we're going to talk about all the crap mentorships that exist and like how horrible this thing can be, we would go in a direction that would be like nobody would want to tap dance anymore.
Oh my God.
Right. I want to say, like, thank you for the care that you guys have to start the thing. And it gives, someone who has experience never really knows if that experience is relevant unless there's a question. Right? And if you see questions and you're like, well, maybe let's see if these answers fit for that audience, right? Because some people ask questions wanting a particular answer. So I'm very thankful.
Stefania, you want to say something?
I'm reading again.
He's asking, are you going to do this again?
I'm busy.
Oh,
we got the Finland/Denmark in the house. Ilmo is here listening. That's nice.
Ilmo.
Oh, sweet.
Wow.
So the question is, are you going to do this again?
If we do this again, what do you want us to talk about?
That's an important question. What would you like? That is a lovely comment, Gina.
Yeah. Very much believe that.
I think actually, like, I think there's some stuff in this program that I can show. Yeah. Oh, that's cool.
Oh, sweet.
Ah,
Now I learned something new. Okay. Just to show
Fun.
this lovely comment.
that's great.
Yeah. That's really special.
I don't have nothing more to say. I think when I share all these things that, like the post we are doing, like for me feels like a place to smile and to share, and like there's no, how you call that? I don't know, like bad vibes. Like it's like safe space, and people is engaging, people is talking and it's asking,
Yes.
and we need space for that.
So we have
And
suggestions of new topics: creation, life,
life.
recommendations on who to study, how to create, process of creation, business side maybe.
Wow,
Lots of
Really
stuff.
good.
creation, like many times creation, no? Like 3 times.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Sometimes. Well,
Okay.
it's possible to comment even after we end. So if it's anything, we will read it and take it into consideration. And it's lovely that you guys want more. That's awesome.
Very, very cool.
I feel the monkey of the group.
Next time.
All right.
Relationship between tap dancer and live musician.
Cool. Cool. Yeah, these are great.
Yes.
Guys, we need to talk.
Yes, we will talk.
Create life. Whoa.
How to
A rabbit hole.
Estefanía, I don't think she meant like that.
Wait, what?
I started.
Just took it the wrong way.
That's great.
I thought this was a family show. What are we talking about?
Top or die. Okay, I love the suggestions here.
That word. Go to him.
Oh, you're so practical. It's awesome.
Okay,
so I would just encourage you to keep the suggestions coming, and we will make a list.
That's great.
Lovely. Okay, I think we end with that.
I think it's the best way of ending. Yeah.
Okay, thank you everybody who came and listened, and thank you again, Andrew, for joining.
My pleasure.
And we'll keep reading the comments and the suggestions for sure. So thank you, guys.
Yeah.
Take care. Stay safe.
We'll see you next week.
Yeah. Bye.